Hello and welcome to the Mime Radio Show podcast. I'm Karen Hoyer.
And I'm James Donlan.
And today we are without our wonderful producer, Michael Diaz, but hopefully he can make us look good in post, right?
That's right. He's out there in the darkness somewhere. He's the one that pushes the buttons and clips the tape and, has the water bucket nearby. So without him, we couldn't do this. So thank you, Michael, wherever you are.
We have a wonderful guest today. Today we are interviewing Michelle Matlock, and I'd like to read a little bit about her. Michelle Matlock is an independent performing artist, director, producer, teacher, and creative coach. She has been part of the entertainment industry for over 30 years and had the honor of being the first African-American person to create a main character for Cirque du Soleil. She toured with the Cirque's big top show, OVO, for close to 10 years as the Ladybug, the romantic heart of the show. Michelle is the founder of Circle Up Productions, a live entertainment and performing arts education company based in Tacoma, Washington. And she has spent the past 2 years developing Passport to Thrive, an online course designed specifically for independent performing artists who want to stay creatively free, thriving, and financially independent. Prior to Cirque du Soleil, Michelle spent 15 years as a performing artist, teacher, and producer in New York City. During that time, she toured her critically acclaimed solo show, The Mammy Project, across North and South America, and had the pleasure of working in the New York and theater and circus scene, playing with Big Apple Circus, Circus Amok, and the Bindlestiff Family Circus. So let's welcome the amazing Michelle Matlock. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Michelle.
Thank
Welcome.
you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to speak with you.
You are coming to us from California at the Del Arte School, correct?
That's right. I'm in Blue Lake, California, Del Arte International, and I'm teaching the 6-week clown block up here.
Fantastic.
Fun so far?
It's, absolutely fun. Great group of students, great staff and faculty up here, and just, a beautiful spot to be in the world.
Yeah, the skies are blue there most of the time.
The skies are blue and the mountains are glorious. And I still got to get to the ocean, but.
Yeah. Okay, Michelle, I'm going to start with a question that's going to go right to your heart, I hope. So I know you've performed for, how many people do you think you performed for, estimate, in terms of when you worked for Cirque du Soleil and other, millions?
Oh, well, I'd have to, let me add this up here. No, I'm just kidding. Well, you figure, the big top held, 3,000. The Fuji Dome held 5,000. That was 10 shows every day, 10 shows, not every day, 10 shows a week, every week for 6 months. So that alone. Yeah, I mean, I never even thought about how many
I'm sure it's at least half the world, but here's the question. So right before you go on stage to perform, right the second before you step into the light, what goes through your mind?
What the hell am I doing? I can't believe I'm doing this again. Okay, it's all good. Let's go.
And then once you step on for that few seconds after you feel the audience in front of you and they're watching you, what goes through your mind? Anything besides the work?
Yeah, the work, but pure joy, bliss. This is where I'm supposed to be. It's so right. Let's make it happen. Present. Who's there? Can I hear them? Are they breathing? Did anyone laugh when I stepped out?
Yeah. What do you do for maybe the hour before those moments of those, making that transition? Tell us about your preparation.
Yeah, you're mental, physical, emotional preparation before a show.
Yeah. I think, of course, stretching, working out, vocal warm up, any sort of play if I have partners that's going on. But to be honest with you, I I get nervous, but it's not in like the shaky nervous. I just get nervous and my body shuts down. So I will take depending on what the time is, I will take a 5 to 20 minute nap.
In that hour, you're somewhere.
Yep.
Zoned out.
Wow.
And
people think it's the strangest things. There's tons of pictures of me sleeping, full makeup, in a chair, just like out. And sometimes it's like for 5 minutes, and then I'm refreshed. I'm like, boom, right? Like it's just like this energy thing that happens. But I do. I used to play with Circus Amok, and they were outdoor in New York parks. And yeah, right before the show, there's tons of pictures of me in full costume, like just like snoozing. It's just a reaction that I've always had to nervousness.
That's really amazing. James, do you remember that Avner said that was his main advice? Take a nap.
Take a nap.
Before your show, take a nap. That's what Avner told us.
This is a little segue for a minute, but they say one way to build clown characters is a personal weakness. So what you're describing could be positive or it could be weakness, depending on where you put the emphasis. Have you ever developed an onstage character based on the ability to sleep in any place?
No, but I should. That is such a great idea because I get a lot of flack for it. Again, people make fun of me. There's tons of pictures. The acrobats used to just wait and round the corner and take pictures and then send them to me later. They once gave me a card full of just these sleeping positions throughout the couple years we were together at that time. So no, I think that's a great idea. What a fantastic idea. I am definitely going to do that.
You certainly have a lot of information there. Okay, here's my last question, then Karen can take it away. So you're on stage, the people are in front of you. Do you have a concept of what that public represents to you? Like what, who are those people out there in terms of not whether they're, a carpenter or a baker but like what does that force represent to you, do you think, as a performer?
I think the first thing that came to my mind was just like humanity. When I look out into the audience, I think I know I've had this thought before. It's like we're more alike than different. We are more alike than different, and so let's go find the things that we can celebrate.
That's nice.
And because that was a challenge for me at first, like getting into the audience and doing things, and really intimidating, especially when there's that many. But like, that's what I have to, sort of tell myself. It's like, even though this audience looks, maybe a diversity or maybe not diverse, but like maybe looking different than I am or whatever, we all have some stuff in common. So what is it? Let's go find it and have fun with it.
Beautiful.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
So, Michelle, this is the Mime Radio podcast. And I remember maybe about a year and a half ago when I contacted you about being a part of the Women in Mime forum that we were doing on Facebook. And your reaction to me was, well, I don't think of myself as a mime. And me looking at you, I knew you were like a wonderful clown. And I had met you through the Big Apple Circus Clown Care program and seen you as a clown there, but also looking at some of the stuff that you had online of your solo work, you have all the qualities that mime shares with clown, which is the stillness, the takes, the expressions on the face, the physical characterization. So in your experience, what do you see as the relationship between mime and clown?
Yeah, and thank you for that, because that invitation opened my mind up about embracing the mime within myself. And I haven't studied mime or anything like that, but I know that we utilize mime all the time in the acts that we're doing, and we do that. It's definitely a practice and a thing to perfect. So, I think it goes hand in hand, and I'm not so much, because of that particular thing you invited me to, I was like, oh, I'm a part of this group too. This is so incredible, And so now when I think about it, it's just, I don't know, there's just shift. I don't know that I can define it. It's just like, I'm not looking at it as oh, that's that thing over there. Mm-hmm. No, this is part of what we also do as clowns. And a little bit of me was like, God, I feel like I just getting a little tidbit of what clowning is. Now I got to figure out what miming is. My God.
Well, they say that for a clown to be successful, they have to be a mime. And they say for a mime to be successful, they have to be a clown. So there's you'll find there's a real emergence, synthesis of the elements other than just walls and juggling and falling down. There's this commonality of physical presence that's common in both forms that both areas need, so
James, who's they? I think they is James Donlin, right? James Donlin says.
It could be me, right?
Well, I think that's really true, and now I'm in a point where I don't see it as other, and I think before I got that invitation and listened to all of you speak, I did have sort of this stereotype. Oh, mime's over there, all the white face and the robe and and I've seen people do it beautifully. And that's not necessarily, what I thought, but now it's expanded and I understand exactly what you're saying, James, is like it goes hand in hand. And
that's the great thing about the form of physical. I mean, we could call it all physical theater. Is that it's a neutral place for all humans, as you mentioned, to congregate. It's right. It's specific to just being human, in a physical way. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Michelle, your early training was in theater, and I know you studied Shakespeare too, right? Maybe you can the National Shakespeare Theater.
Conservatory. Right? Yeah. So I started. After graduating from high school, I went to Western Washington University and studied theater for about 3 years there. And I had one more year to go, but I was invited to a summer program in New York to study Shakespeare. And since my final year at Western was going to be full of Shakespeare, I thought this is a great way to get ahead of this. And I went to that. I think it was like 6 or 9 weeks or something in New York, and in the Catskills of New York, though. Uh-huh. And then there was one weekend that we all traveled down to New York to see one of the teachers that they were doing a play. And that weekend changed my life. And I knew that I needed to be in New York. I didn't know how I was going to sort of do that. But then the school had a 2-year program. They accepted me with scholarship. Mm-hmm. So that helped. Like I could go to my parents and say, I got a scholarship. So this is like an opportunity. They were like, yes, boom. After, sort of figuring out how to pay my last year of college. So anyway, I ended up graduating from the National Shakespeare Conservatory.
How was that experience studying the classic? How has that helped you as a clown and a mime, do you think? Or in creating your own material
I think that's the biggest thing is like that conservatory. Yes, we studied the classics, but the real push was like to really be, to be a creator, to be a deviser, to create your own, to be inspired by these classics and the way to deliver them, but to really create your own work. And each of our teachers all were doing that. So we could go see them, whether they were producing, directing, actually dancing or acting or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it was a real big influence on how I would shape, the rest of my career. And basically it was all the teachers, they just walked across the street from the Stella Adler program at NYU. And so if you think about that training is almost identical to the training that I got.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend, if anybody wants to know the true story of how Michelle got started, that you have some clips on YouTube of your show, Big Shoes, Short Tales.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. Yeah. It's so funny. It's the birth of this clown, Michelle.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that was the New York Clown Festival back in maybe 2010 or something.
What have been the biggest challenges in terms of transitioning from more like, what should we, I don't want to say legitimate theater. That's a silly, people say that, but
Yeah.
from acting in a conventional
actor to
sense to more surreal and more adventurous
Yeah.
styles like clown.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was difficult. I went like kicking and screaming because I just didn't identify because, well, one, I didn't see anyone that looked like me doing it on a professional level. And really, my thing was like, I've got to do this. Like, even though everybody's telling me that, it's hard and, this and that, and you can't this, I was like, this is the only, I didn't have a backup plan. So like, whatever I choose to do, it has to work for me and my life in the way that I want to do it. So I just didn't see an example of like, or I wasn't open, my mind, I didn't know what it was really, right? Like, so.
What attracted you to this transition?
Well, to be honest with you, one was that I kept getting offers to do this work that paid me. Whereas I'm, working for exposure to be an actor in a theater, somebody's doing a Shakespeare show that didn't really envision me in any of the parts, and and I have to have a, this side gig. Whereas from my experience, I've never been asked to clown for free.
That's you're almost coming in on the opposite direction, the other runway, because most people are, looking, they can't get paid. So that's funny.
Yeah. It's only ever been offered. I mean, besides the first thing, I don't know if you know of Amy Gordon, Amy G, who is my best friend. And we went to college together in Western. And then she followed me out to New York. And she was the one that insisted that we were clowns and insisted that we should create this silent clown show about being in our tiny apartment. And that's kind of, where it all began. And I looked up to Amy, even though I'm older than her. She's just so smart and, talented. I always looked up to her and like, I was like, okay, well, if you're saying this is what we should do, then okay, even though I was like, this doesn't seem like the thing. But then we were rehearsing in Washington Square Park and because we couldn't afford, any rehearsal space at the time in New York, we were teaching ourselves how to juggle, and we were doing this blind cane thing. It was probably totally not socially correct, but we were just we were doing silly stuff. And this woman comes up to us and is like, I'm watching y'all rehearse and you are just silly and funny and I don't know what you're doing, but I'm developing this clown program on cruise ships and we need more women. And it was Bryn Swanson. I don't know if you know her, but she's a clown, ex-Ringling clown.
Right.
So, me and Amy were developing this show for the Theatorium on the Lower East Side. We were like, well, we're kind of busy, but and then that night in our clown apartment, 2-room studio, she's on one side, I'm on the other, and we were like, wait a second, did she say that they'll bring us down to Miami and then we're going to the Caribbean and then we'll get training? Wait, did you keep that card? Wait, where's that card? I think it's my, So we that was our first introduction and training, was with these ex-Ringling clowns that were making this program on what were at the time the biggest cruise ships in the world, the Royal Caribbean. So we got a real
Right. So that's kind of interesting that she said we need more women, because that Ringling culture is pretty male centered. So to bring the two of you on that, tell us about what it was like to perform on a cruise ship.
Yeah, I mean, it was different. I mean, and then we were developing a new way of performing on cruise ships. So it wasn't like we were main stage or, side stage. We were like this in between. They had these humongous gutted out ships that had these sort of streets down the middle. And the whole idea was that we would be street performers. Huh. We would walk in parades on stilts, and then we would open with bits in the audience for the big name acts.
Wow.
And so
some of my friends are Mexican mimes, and they've been hired by Mexican Airlines to work the aisles on flights in Mexico. It's kind of a similar idea, only, you're on the water and they're in the air,
that's so, Yeah. So
What
we were forced to learn how to juggle. They were like, if you don't learn how to pass clubs, we can't use you. They were really like, they just saw us as like, we were nothing. We didn't have anything. We just like, we're silly enough and brave enough to take these risks. But so we learned how to pass gloves and walk on stilts and pie gags and makeup and juggling and like, this.
So
Sounds awesome.
the training, whatever that people think of training, like maybe the ballet master with a stick, because there's that style of training, or the clock training in the school for 2 years. Then you have kind of on the job training or exploration of your own through your own ingenuity, of developing skills that are really a core part of you. How do you feel in your background that balance between maybe formal training versus more, in the world, courageous training? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, with this particular thing, we did get 6 weeks training, but then it was on the job training for sure. And we just went with our instincts and with what they told us in those, like pie gag this is what you do in the pie gag. And we just followed what they did and we got laughs. And, we did learn how to pass clubs, but like, I got paired with a couple, like 3 jugglers that were magnificent. So they would do these juggling things, and then I would spin a ring on my hand, and I would get the biggest applause. They taught me that. They taught me that balance, because I was like, I don't, I can't match, and he's like, you don't have to. You're going to be the most popular out of all of us. And so then in general, my training in clowning has been on the job training.
Yeah.
It was also like that when I came back from cruise ships. I got hired by Big Apple Circus Clown Care. And another thing, I think I did well in the audition, which was a lot of improv. But then when I was thrown into that job, man, I didn't know what I was doing. Like, people who had so much experience, so many tricks and things to pull out and know-how. And I just felt like I didn't know anything. So all I could do was be super present.
So would you say some of your biggest...
exactly what you need to do in that particular job. There really is nobody comes to that job knowing what to do. You have to just be present, because you never know what's going to happen when you open a hospital door, right?
Right, exactly. However, there are a lot of clowns in that business that have their shtick. Right. They have their thing that they want to do. And there's that expectation that they want from the partner to hold their load. So when I first began that job, I was not holding my load because I didn't have a load. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You could be like, ta-da.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you accomplish, grasping your load? Like I mentioned earlier, the challenges, obviously you have a very courageous, curious nature about you. So how did you come about, getting all those skills? And
I think it was
comfortable.
Getting with the right partner. When I met Julia Pasquale up in Harlem, and we had this freedom that, she didn't have a lot of shtick. It was like improv. And so when I could play with her and we could come up with things that then we could repeat, and I wasn't just playing what she played with me. Right. And I discovered all sorts of crazy things that I could do and bring to other situations. And so it was fine. It was the right partner that allowed me then to be able to partner with anyone. And I could,
Michelle, during this conference that we were just at, Kim Winslow told this created this great picture of you and Julie. Julie is this tiny sort of super wired kind of a personality. Kim called her a mosquito.
Yes.
And he said, you are like a pillar. Yes. And the contrast between the two, you would just look at her, mostly just standing there and using your eyes while she was buzzing around with all this energy. And then you would just like put your hand on her head. And just the way he described that picture and the contrast between it is a perfect partnership because you're so different.
Yeah. No, we had tons of fun. The slow burns with Julie and the just like the holding her head while she just like, and she would tap dance circles around me, and I would do one move, and then it would, like it was great. But I learned a lot from her and that freedom, and I could take that and then partner with anyone.
What is it in your childhood that might have contributed to your growth as an artist, or given you skills, from a young age, before you even knew about performance or in front of an audience? What can you tell us? Is there any kind of influence or energy that may have shaped you, that helped you in this journey that you're on?
Well, yeah, I come from a family that loves to laugh. And so I learned very quickly, like, if I could make my parents laugh, I could get out of trouble. Like, if I could make them see the irony or the like absurdness of like whatever trouble I got in, and make them laugh, like it was all like I wouldn't get on restriction or whatever, it was like we laughed. Oh, that's right. If I could turn it somehow. And so that was very much how I grew to like try to make people laugh, and that extended into being class clown and all these things, and being the funny one, just trying to find the funny about everything. Was there any pressure there? Did you have to live up to a certain reputation at some point? Like, no. Yeah. Not during, no, not at all. It came pretty naturally. And then people, I think there was no pressure, but I think there was expectation, like, Michelle's going to make us laugh. And you would meet that with an open mind. I mean, you would just jump in the tub, right? How could I find where could I find the funny? And how could yes, Steph, I was always doing that, just making people smile, squashing disagreements, and any awkward moments. Do you find that you're looking for the laugh, the laugh, or is there the darkness or the melancholy or the other side of human existence that you're interested in? Or is it always in one side? Or do you like kind of, like the Samuel Beckett Waiting for Godot kind of, they say Waiting for Godot is a clown show, which I believe it is, but can you find the pathos, and are you interested in that sort of thing? Right. I have read about that and studied with that, and certainly working with David Shiner, that's there. But I tend to just go for the joy and find the joy of it all. I'm not necessarily, it's not that I don't like, it's just I'm not naturally pulled to that dark part. And maybe that's something that I should explore more and go there more. But like my humor, that comes from joy. Let's celebrate joy. Let's get to the joy part of let's get to the discovery, the curiosity, and then just being Black American. I find being and playing in that joy a form of resistance, because of the way that we're portrayed in general, distressed and oppressed. How has that played a role in your background, like in the performance world, like in terms of being African American? What challenges or support has come from? I mean, how does that play a part in where you've come to now? And this is like a really good segue to your production of the Mammy Project too, how people react to that, how the audiences react, and what was your reasons for exploring that? I think as a young performing artist, actor, I was not satisfied with the vision in terms of what I was being called to play and what I was seeing played and what I was seeing produced. I wasn't satisfied with the lack of reality or lack of story or lack of imagination. And I felt like there were old things that I was being pulled into as a young actor that I didn't want. I wanted new stories. I wanted new realities. I wanted new possibilities. And I just wasn't seeing that. And it all ended when I got called to audition for an Aunt Jemima pancake mix commercial. And I was like, I'm done. I'm over the mainstream, again, trying to break into this mainstream thing. I've got to find a different way. And so the Mammy Project came out of a lot of frustration and anger. And I was like, if you want me to play Mammy, I'm going to show you who Mammy is, really, and where she comes from, the truth of it. And so I researched, I was at the Schomburg day and night, researched the history behind Mammy and how it came about, and found all the actresses that played her throughout the years. And the first actress, Nancy Green, who was actually a ex-slave, was the first one to play her.
What year was that? What year?
That was 1893. She debuted at the 1893 World's Fair.
Oh yeah,
in Chicago. And so when I found that history, that was great. But then I found another history, interesting period of time, 30 years out of slavery. Frederick Douglass, Ida B. Wells, Hallie Q. Brown were all fighting for African Americans to be included in that fair, which they weren't included in that fair. And so much came out of that fair. But Nancy Green was celebrated because she was the image that white people loved, flipping pancakes, yes, massa, and all that. But the achievements that African Americans had made thus far, Frederick Douglass, Hallie Q. Brown, Ida B. Wells, they all wanted that to be on highlight.
Right.
Right. And that's sort of the beginning of these days and months that we get, because the protests became so large that finally the fair said, okay, you get a colored American day for this fair, right? Anyway, Nancy Green's over there like flipping pancakes, and the line is like around the entire fair. And so anyway, the research in this story, so anyway, I wrote this show to out of anger, really. Out of anger is what I wrote it, and I wanted to be real about it. So I did, I used the minstrelsy part of it to exercise some clowning in there. Since Mammy comes from slavery, but then it was character in minstrel shows. White man was dressed in blackface with a bandana that would be imitating Mammy. And then that's how these two guys that came up with this self-rising mix decided to call it Mammy from that character. But then they decided to hire a real Black woman to play the part of Mammy, and then develop this pancake mix around it. And really, it was probably her recipe that put in there, and all these different things. So I wrote the show for all those reasons, and then to play all the different parts. I played Frederick Douglass. I played Scarlett O'Hara.
Yes.
I played a slave auctioneer. I play a slave. I play a Mammy, white woman who collects Mammy memorabilia. I think there were 17 different roles that I played, and I wanted to play all those roles because at the time I was, a cocky young performer coming out of school, and I could play anything. Why can't I play anything?
And this was before you got into clowning and physical theater, right?
This is wild. This is wild.
Wow.
So
Michelle, you actually took this show on tour pretty extensively. And did you always have like a Q&A at the end with the audience?
Yeah, always.
And how did that, what were the reactions? What were some of the interesting reactions that you got? And I imagine some of your audiences, you were preaching to the choir, and others, they were maybe a little bit puzzled or offended, or maybe?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was very interesting because you got to remember, this is back in, the early 2000s. So we weren't where we are today.
Right.
Anyone, no matter what the color of your skin is. So I got a lot of backlash from Black Americans because I named it Mammy.
Oh, wow.
And then when they saw it, it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing. Like, I wanted to bring people together to have an open discussion because I thought there was too much that we didn't talk about at the time. And I was like, if we don't talk about this, if no one knows that, Black America hates Mammy, Aunt Jemima, and white people think it's so amazing, why don't we know this about each other? Like, this is crazy. Like, why did I get called for an Aunt Jemima pancake mix commercial when in my family, this is the most degrading thing ever? Why is that okay? Right. So I wanted to have this discussion. I wanted to see what people thought and think. So lots of different things, man. Like, I think what the show served its purpose in it allowed people to express what they're really feeling. And sometimes it was like wonderful, and sometimes it was sad.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes it was cathartic. During that show was the first time that I ever heard a white person stand up and say, white people need to start talking to other white people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was cathartic at the time. Now it's very common. Like, we know that that's how we're going to make change. It's not going to be me talking. It's going to be, people talking.
Yeah.
So it was very cathartic at that moment, though. Like, I was like, that's the key. I can step away from this because this burden is too much. Right. So the talkbacks were better than the show for me.
Yeah. Interesting. So, they say, they being me, maybe, that the clown arts and the mime arts and the physical theater arts rise to the occasion when there's social injustice being done. My early generation is the Vietnam years and the civil rights years. I was in high school in the 60s when all that crazy stuff was happening domestically and internationally to the USA. So, and that was also, particularly the 70s, was a golden age for physical theater, mask work, and mime and clown. So it seems natural that you would write something like Mammy, but also at the same time, you're developing the clown art and the physical theater art. I'm wondering if in the future you'll ever go further in that direction. And so in other words, the clown and the mime is more surreal and more abstract in some ways and stylized, but yet the themes are really powerful. So I'm wondering, do you ever think about that, of how you can use your social injustice or your historical perceptions and put them in more a clown context or a physical theater context?
Yeah. I'm always thinking about that. And I did it. I did it a bit with the Mammy Project. I saw you were eating the batter, that was total clown right there. Yeah, that was clown. That was me imitating the clown. So before that, I start with the whole minstrel show with the interlocutor, introducing Mr. Bones and Tambone and all that, and then in comes the Mammy Project. I mean, the Mammy character who was an actual character in minstrel shows. And so anyway, yes, always. And being from that classical theater background, and now having studied clowning for many years now and continue studying on that, I'm always thinking about how I want to mix the things. I like to mix them. I like to, go in and out of these things. I
think that answers my question earlier about I said the dark side or the pathos side, but I think what I was really talking about are, like core issues of humanity.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. No, I want to explore those things. I like using clown in physical theater to explore these, ideas of racism and stereotypes and things like that. I like that. And the Mammy Project has been a lifelong project for me. So now I've been, there's always talk of how to bring it back and bring it up to date. So serious talk of that. And so now, of course, I have more experience in like, how do I even deepen the exploration with, the mime and the clown that I used in that show already? How do I strengthen that? Definitely thinking about that all the time.
So now I want to switch to something like totally opposite, maybe, or a little bit different, was when you got hired to be the Ladybug for Cirque du Soleil. And one of the questions that I was thinking about, I didn't have the opportunity to see you in that show, but the Ladybug seems like this character that is very sweet and cute and attractive to the children in the audience. And but I know you as a sort of outspoken and edgy and mischievous kind of a person. How was that character for you? And what was the experience of touring that for many years?
Yeah, that character was, I loved creating that character, and I loved playing her. and I've had to lean in and just resolve with when people say she's cute, because I didn't mean for that to happen. And that is a part of her. But I tell you what, the interactions that I had with the audience and the men and some women even, they found her sexy and voluptuous and inviting. So it wasn't just the kids, the cuteness, but I had some really, adult moments.
Wonderful.
And play with that, and men, just fell over backwards for Ladybug. It was
really.
It was shocking because and so to make such a feminine, and then so this character was just all about the love for me and seeking love and spreading love and falling in love and being in love and like loving love, and I love to play that. I imagined her as this bright love light that fluttered through and bounced and rolled through each time she appeared.
Like love in the air, love is in
the air. And just fun, and I think that's why I was able to play it for so long, is because I created it, and I created something that really touched me every time I went and did it, right? But what an amazing experience, just being in a creation, being in a company where cis white men rule as far as clowns go. Guy Laliberté is known for wiping out the girl clowns. It's a miracle that I even made it. And what an experience, what a learning experience like that. And talk about learning on the job, just tell
us one of the unique is there a particular unique touring experience that you could share with us? Did you get like 10 propositions after a show, or or what?
Well, tell you, the most surprising was when we played Mexico City. There were 3 clowns and 3 of us clown characters, and I mean, we were like superstars, like Michael Jackson superstars. Like they would chase us. And like in the show, first of all, we could do anything, any move we made, they were on the floor. It was like like that Oprah parody where they show Oprah's audience, like their heads popping off when she says like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. Like these people in the audience in Mexico City, I mean, they just loved the clowns and loved everything we did. We were so funny. And then afterwards, they would be at the gates waiting for us. They would have to shuffle us into cars and we'd have to run. We'd have people that would like, I think there was someone that was like a decoy that would make them run the other way while we ran and got into the taxi, else we would just be attacked. I had never experienced anything like that.
Now you know what Mick Jagger feels like. Or,
now I know what rock star feels like. That was
What's your feeling about a big space versus a small, intimate space? You performed in the largest spaces and then also, like a small stage. What are your feelings about that?
Love a black box theater, which is where Mammy played. I love the intimacy of that. I love being able to see everyone's eyes. But then there's something so magical about the big top. The big top is like no other space that I've ever played.
How so? How would you describe it?
It's just the atmosphere, the smell of popcorn, the spaciousness because of it's a tent, right? And semi-round. We didn't play in the round, but it was like 3/4. Yeah. So being almost in the round was glorious too. I don't know, just how do I just keep going like this. but there is a bit of intimacy that, especially the big top that Cirque has in the United States.
Yeah, I imagine you had very good lighting and stuff that could close the space down if you needed. Yeah.
It's my favorite too. So I mean, I relish in it, and it's been quite a while now since I've been in a black box again. But I think those are my 2 types of You
In a
know,
big show, is there, with a big ensemble, is there more, what about freedom of your in the moment choices? You know, like you do a solo show, you can do anything you want. But if you're in a very well-oiled big ensemble, especially with circus acts, where there's a lot of safety measures that have to be taken, is there any leeway for improvisation much, or is it a little more tighter?
a little bit. Most of the improvisation that we could take hold of would be in the audience, because we couldn't, you know, they couldn't really control that. But yeah, with circus especially, they're like, the act is supposed to be 5 minutes and you went 6:20, so don't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Right? And actually, one of the clowns got let go because of this guy went like 13 minutes on like and kept doing that. You know, he just, you know, but it's difficult. Yeah, you know. It's difficult, and it's difficult to be, you know, that playful, and when anything that spontaneous, anything can happen. It really just becomes about our connection with each other.
Oh, Michelle, that's the gift music.
It's the gift.
It's the time for your gift. Did you happen to get an email from the Mime Museum?
Let me look here. Let me find it. Maybe I should find it on my phone, so then you can see, or maybe you can still see my face on it.
So I think the Mime Museum sent you an email with a very special item. You know, the Mime Museum is kind of crowded, so we have to like deacquisition some of our things. So we're like kind of returning some of the things that belong to different mimes. So that's where we're at. Did you see what it was?
Dear Michelle, thank you for joining us on the Mime Radio Show podcast. The Mime Museum found this item in its vast archive. Due to space issues, we are deacquisitioning items and returning them to their rightful owners. Please see below. Is this a winning lotto ticket?
Yeah. Now, isn't there? I heard that like in your show, you talk about like winning like $2,700 in a lotto ticket.
I did win the New York State Lotto. Yeah.
Now, is that an actual true story, Michelle?
That is a very true story. Yes.
And you didn't keep the ticket? You just let it go because it ended up in the
museum. It has to be
museum.
in my New York stuff. I'm sure that I kept the ticket. Or maybe they took the ticket. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was one of those, you know, I was doing, that was a time, a scarcity mindset time of my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that my mom was like, okay, I'm going to send you your rent because you're, you know, but you go buy a lotto ticket. My mom was a gambler. And she won the lotto more times than anyone.
Really?
She won at Tacoma State Lotto, Washington State Lotto several times, and always hit.
She must have played a lot.
She did play a lot. She played this much where she kept the lotto tickets, and it was a tax write-off. All the losing lotto tickets was a tax write-off. Anyway, where she sent the money, you know, was at a Western Union that had the lotto thing right there. Right. So I thought, okay, I'm going to listen to my mom. Here's $1. Buy the lotto ticket. And I won. I had like 5 numbers out of 6.
Wow.
And 9 other people had that too. So that's why it wasn't like a big win. Yeah. But for me, it was a big win. I mean, I did the most insane things. I went and quit my job. I like, you know, like I was just like on top of the world. It just took me to another level.
Well, you mentioned scarcity mindset, and that was the workshop that I took with you, which I thought was really fabulous. And it has to do, it's like, I think you said it's like the first module of your online course, which is helping artists become entrepreneurs. And talk to us a little bit about how you developed this course, and what do you want to do with it, and why do you think it's necessary?
Yeah, I've been developing this course for quite a long time. I was just too afraid to like let anyone else know that I had developed it until the pandemic hit. And I saw a lot of artists just like going like, oh, well, you know, it's over. And I didn't do that. I took my entire plan for the year and I put it online. And I really believe because I did that is the like why. Well, first of all, I never stopped earning income. I earned income online through the whole pandemic. I actually earned more in 2019 than I did in 18. The reason how I believe that why I'm even here at Del Arte is because I stayed visible online. The reason why I directed the show down in LA, taught for the clown school, and all these things that are coming back into the real world are because I stayed visible online, because none of this stuff existed in my life as far as connections before 2020. So 2020, I decided to really bring this thing out and develop it for several reasons. One is that we are told, it's ingrained in our society somehow, we are told as artists that if you choose this path as performing artist, visual artist, whatever, you're choosing most likely to be in poverty. Mm. And we accept that and we choose it anyway because we love it. But I am against that. I am against that. I wish that we told our young artists that you are choosing to be an entrepreneur. And there's some ways that entrepreneurs think. And it's okay to think that way as an artist also. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be poor. Mm. And you don't have to be famous in order to be thriving.
True. That's true.
You can make $200,000 a year as a performing artist and nobody knows your name.
Yeah.
And are we thinking about like creative entrepreneurs? And like I said, creative entrepreneurs are folks who invest in their own talent. Mm-hmm. And that's what we do. We invest in our own talent, but we do it without expecting a return. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the wrong mindset to have in terms of value, what we value, how we value our services, how we move in the world.
Yeah. Where did this revelation come from? Is that from your experience with Cirque du Soleil, or where do you think you arrived at this?
Well, not just Cirque du Soleil. I started developing this when I was on tour with Cirque du Soleil, but I was thinking about my whole thing, like building up, because by the time Cirque du Soleil plucked me out of New York, I had finally created this way that I wanted to live. I finally was like paying my rent on time. I finally could go to IKEA and get like furniture for myself. I didn't have to have a roommate. Like I had built this, I was building this little mini empire of the things that I love to do, because I decided one day I just want to do what I love to do and I want to make a lot of money doing it. There's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. And so I had started this creative entrepreneur mindset before Cirque. Cirque got me, and I was able to go like, okay, now this is more money than I've ever made in my entire life. I don't know if I'll ever make this kind of money again. So what am I going to do with it? Mm-hmm. And that catapulted me to another level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then how can I make this money work for me? How can I think about multiple streams of income? How can I think about passive income? How, when I get out of this, am I going to get to the next level without falling? So I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I was the person that like sold the blow pops in 7th grade before Spanish class. And my parents would go to like Costco and get them for $5 a box. And I'd make $25 on that box. Pocket full of quarters. Uh-huh. So I always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. For any young artist needs to be organized in a business sense to really do anything. This is right. You're going big though. You're like, let's just jump in and really go for it.
Let's map it out. I'm saying whatever you want, maybe, whatever you want. We're not taught to have a strategy and have a plan. We're not necessarily taught to look at the bigger picture. We're taught to like, just, go after the gig and like do it because of the work, do it because of the love. And if you do it because of the money, sometimes you're a sellout. You're considered a sellout. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a sellout. I sell out every damn show that I produce. Call me a sellout. I'm claiming it right now.
How does one stay true to their heart in that journey that you're talking about? How does one?
You continue to do what you love. You do what you love, fully.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that those two things can't be happening, that you can't think about, like, have I built an audience am I building an audience? So that, like if I produce my own show right now, who's coming? There's nothing wrong with thinking about these things. There's nothing wrong with building an audience for yourself. So that even if you're hired by another company, your audience is coming with you.
Yeah, this is especially true now because when I was young, it was in some ways easier to be a young artist because it was a much more of a jungle back then. You could survive by your own initiative, but now the culture and society is so complex. There's so many barriers that it's really hard for a young artist to get training and to get experience and even to perform in a theater. So I think what you're doing is really important now.
Yeah, and in this day and age of social media, a young person could completely develop a following and an audience and make a living. And I'm not saying overnight.
And that's so delicate because you have to, for that to be successful, especially, you have to know what you're doing to be successful on the internet or through media. It's
a little bit.
In the old days, if you could write a letter and get a brochure printed, you'd send out everything in the mail. There was no video, there was no internet, and you would sit by the mailbox waiting for these responses. And on the other side of it, the producers and the sponsors, and the presenters were more open to the unknown. Today, in today's world, they're less, like big touring circuits are not so open to, they tend to go for the things surefire, right? So I'm just saying today, I think it's what you're talking about is really important to how to navigate our world today, I think, for a young artist.
And what I do is I simplify it because it's not as complex as you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just about being as consistent. Like, these younger folks, they go on social media every day and they scroll and they lurk. Imagine if they told their story in pictures.
Yeah.
You tell your story and you post and you talk about the realities of what you're doing or where you're going or what you're doing. And you do that consistently and you build an audience. It's not
where can people, younger artists or whoever, find you to
Michelle Nicole
partake of your okay, MichelleMatlock.com. Okay, here's a question.
How often do you teach that?
Let me just correct that. MichelleNicoleMatlock.com.
Okay, everybody's got that.
And also through Circle Up Productions, right?
CircleUp.fun.
Yeah, CircleUp.fun. How often do you teach that online course?
Yeah, so I did 3 cohorts of it last year, which is phenomenal. Wow. And then, so now that I'm on the road sort of teaching again, we'll see. Those were my first 3. And then I had all these one-on-one coaching things. So I took about 100 artists through it. So wow. We'll see how that grows in the next year or so. I won't be able to do 3 cohorts, but I certainly will probably do 1 mastermind, and we get together and I take you through the course and we talk and we plan and we devise and and so you can get on a email list on any CircleUp.fun or MichelleNicoleMatlock.com. Get on the email list and I'll let you know when it's happening and you can check it out.
Michelle, so now you're a little older now and you've been performing for 30 years. So how do you adapt for the physical, inevitable process of aging as a performer, especially a physical performer? Yeah. How does that, what kind of things do you do, or what would be your advice for an older artist?
Yeah, man. Staying the stretching for me is like key. And then finding new ways to do things, like finding new ways to fall. Like my fall is ridiculous, like this swirl down to the ground.
What about up here? What kind of mental shifts might one take to keep the work strong as you get older that you found?
Just trying not to get hurt.
Does that lessen your courage? Does that lessen your spontaneity? Or do you have, I guess what I'm saying is, like I have this theory, which I'm going to say again, like aging is like an hourglass. And when we're younger, all the sand is in the bottom. That's the physical side. And then when we start living, we turn it upside down and the physical starts draining into the mental, right? The other side's the mental. But the volume will always be the same. So when you're older, all the mental's down here and the physical's empty, but yet the volume is the same. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that kind of process? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, it's like, this has just hit me. Like, I'm going to be 50 in next year.
Yeah.
Right. So this, I'm just, it's just sort of happening. It's happening, like, especially I feel the difference between 2019 and today.
Yeah.
I think of COVID and slowing down because of that. So, and now with these young people at Del Arte, I'm like realizing like, oh man, how am I going to teach these people how to fall? I don't know if I can do it as effectively as I used to. And being a generously proportioned person, like all that mini tramp acting and acrobating and circus and muck back in the years is not paying off today.
Yeah. So what do you do? How do you adapt? How do you adapt for the, because we all have limitations as we get older.
Yeah. I'm adapting. I'm finding new ways in terms of performance. I'm finding new ways. I mean, like sometimes I need something there that is sometimes I need a chair in order to jump in there all limbs up,
When does a performer know that time is here to start adapting? When does one know? Like I used to do an act I'd stand on the top of a step ladder, just a real tall one. And eventually I just kind of said, well, I've never fallen, but now it's time to stop. When do you think that happens for you? Like it's time to move on to another approach, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when you know that, when you feel it, like, right? Like
go with it. Don't fight it. Go with it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I pushed it to the limit and then I know that hurts. That hurts. And I could get hurt in a different way. And the recovery is not as it used to be. So when when you have to, that's a personal thing you have to feel. And then, a lot of the clown classes I took over the pandemic, I was like falling onto my couch, which was convenient. They couldn't see the couch.
Perfect.
It was really great.
Adaptation.
But I think you have to, keep finding new ways, keep reinventing what those ways are. Aging comes with wisdom.
Yeah, true.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
We have to lean into that wisdom that we have, that it doesn't necessarily have to be that the pratfall or whatever. It can be
all the physical is going up into here.
And it's the slow burn.
Yeah. Michelle, you mentioned a couple of times this directing project that you had with Carolyn Rattery, which it's her solo show, right?
Yeah.
And I saw like a little piece of it you did, I think last June.
Yeah.
I got to watch this clown. It was like the end show of a clown class you were teaching that was the Bipocalypse show.
Yes. Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about working with her, and she's devising a new show.
Yes. Carolyn Rattery is a wonderful actor and clown out of LA and Boston Court, Pasadena, which is a theater there.
It's a good theater. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did a workshop of it online, which Carolyn asked me to help direct the clown bits. And then, so now it is her woman show called Both And, a play about laughing while Black. And it's the Boston Court's first in-person show back after the pandemic. And so the show is quite extraordinary, I believe, just in where we are today. And she's telling the story of what it means to, why joy is a protest for a Black American.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Which is something you've already said for yourself, yes. Right? Yeah.
And she's using the clown and really elevating clown to like godlike.
That's an excellent idea. I like this. Yeah.
And she's going through the history through the story of the character in the story losing their mother, and why how all these dynamics affect us as African Americans, and bringing the clown back, like kind of reclaiming the clown.
Are you the director, but are you also helping to write it with her?
No. She's written it. It's all her writing.
Yeah.
I'm helping directing the clown Lotsies, right? So it's a mixture of this storyteller and playing character. They're playing characters, the mother and all this, and then there's these clown Lotsies that happen that sort of are these mystical moments and very funny moments, some classical moments, and some like new way of looking at clown.
When is it actually going to be performed?
So it opens April 16th at Boston Court in Pasadena, and it runs until like May 15th.
Oh, fantastic!
Awesome, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So Michelle, you teach, and let's talk about your teaching a bit. So did you come to that recently? Like when I say recently, last few years, or have you always been interested in, in communicating your art or helping young artists to grow?
Yeah, I've been teaching all my life. Like my last quarter of high school, my drama teacher made it so that my last quarter could be spent going into the elementary and middle schools and teaching theater and doing shows with those young folks, because I didn't have any more classes to take. So he made up some classes and these were the classes. And so that was my intro into teaching, was way back then. And then I have always had opportunities to share with younger people all throughout my career, from after school, Big Apple after school program, and creating my own after school programming and pitching it to like a bunch of schools in New York and getting that, and just developing my own thing, being called in to do workshops. I've always taught somehow. That's always come up.
And how does that fit in your philosophy of living and or as being an artist?
Yeah,
I feel that artists should be teachers. That's my personal thing. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, artists should teach at some point. They should turn around and teach, because you learn so much from teaching it.
That's true.
And just in this week and a half that I've been here teaching clown, I have learned so much. It's almost sparked, because I haven't clowned. I haven't been clowning. I haven't, I haven't been thinking about doing a show or devising my own show or whatever, but it sparked me to want to do that. I'm writing down little ideas while I'm here, and like, so it's an amazing, because there's some things that have become that have been aha moments for me in teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than ever. I've always learned from teaching, but this particular moment in my life with this teaching here in this way, it's phenomenal. And I think, yes, you learn so much from teaching. Yes.
Yeah. And that particularly probably because now you are in person teaching. It's not, you're not separated by the screens. You're actually with these people, which must be fantastic.
No, great.
Yeah.
What would be your advice for a young person who wanted to enter the clowning career or the physical theater career? Where would you point them, or what would you say to them?
Yeah, I tell them, no matter where they are, find the people that are doing what you want to be doing. Find them, even if you think that they're bigger than who you think they are. Go up to them, find them, join them. Find who's doing what you're doing and learn from them. Get involved in some way. Show them what you're doing. Somehow find them, be around them, carry their bags. I don't know, just get in there.
What would be your advice to a young African American? Because I know in the history of this physical theater, it's mostly white people doing it that have been visible, right? How would you approach a young African American that might have interest in physicality and mime and clown and so forth?
Find people that are doing what you want to be doing.
Same thing. Yeah.
Same thing. I don't care what color they are. That's an issue, of course.
Right.
And then search for the people that look like you, because you might think that they're not there, that they are, but we are now. It's growing. Like that was a phenomenal moment for me when Clown Gym in New York asked me to do a BIPOC exclusive clown workshop. And I was like, well, I hope y'all are gonna find these clowns, because I don't know of any. I mean, I know of a few, but they're not gonna take my workshop. And so when 12 little baby black clowns showed up, and told me that they've been following me, and they Googled me, and they looked up to me, and that they, you know, they loved this, but didn't, I was the person that looked like them, the first person that looked like them that they saw, you know, doing what they want to do. It blew my mind. I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
And I thought about, like, I used to have those feelings. Like I told you, my whole story is like, I didn't see anyone that was like me doing it. And then I met Julie and whatnot or whatever, but then you just go for it. So search out, and maybe you have to be the one in your neighborhood, your community, that's the first one. Right? Like I'm the first one in amongst a lot of communities, and that's my calling, and that's why I'm here. And I'm just hoping that that can expand.
Does that become a burden at all, or is that just what you were born to do, so to speak?
Yeah, no, I believe that it's a calling, and and I'm right where I should be, and I'm right at this moment, especially you know, since George Floyd's death and all these things, all these predominantly white circus organizations are now like opening up. And I really truly do believe that it's the circus, it's the clowns and the mimes and the circus performers that are going to change this world, because out of the groups, they've been the most progressive in these like DEI situations and stuff, the most progressive, the most get it, right? Like, and so in this moment, I feel like, again, everything has prepared me for this moment to be in this position.
Yeah. And it comes back to what you said, like when we asked you, what is the audience? You said it's humanity. So you already have the clown mentality that you're connected to those people. And why not make it universal and open?
Where do you see clowning changing, or physical theater changing in the coming years? Is it more digital? Is it, will live performance ever disappear? No
way. But I do think there's room for it to expand. And I do think accessibility, you know, like before in 2019, my company, I was just in Tacoma, like, I'm going to build this in Tacoma. Whereas now it's like, wait, I'm building this everywhere now.
Yes.
You know, I had people from Australia and Japan come in, and then I went into other people's stuff. So like, that was awesome. Even though we hated this thing, we would have never, you know, I would have never been in a class with my friend in Tokyo, right? Unless we were doing this. So like, you know, I appreciate that expansion, you know, I appreciate it. I embrace it. Live performance will never disappear. There's no way.
Yeah.
And
what adjustments do we have to make, though? I mean, I guess taking a course like you're offering of the entrepreneurship, that's some kind of awareness that needs to be stronger, of course, right?
Oh, I think so, because I think that possibilities are endless for us as performing artists, especially independent performing artists. The possibilities are endless for spreading, you know, our message, our love, our skills, and also passing on these traditions.
And you can possibly say, well, okay, this is the pandemic silver lining, that we were able to connect worldwide in this method that we hadn't even considered before.
Yeah, and now a lot of the companies that I'm working with, they have that option. They're keeping that option, even though they're keeping the option so that someone in another part of the world can tune in if they choose.
You're right.
How long that lasts, but I mean, I think it is a pretty good idea.
What about legacy? Do you have any thoughts about your personal legacy, or have we already been talking about that without really acknowledging it? I mean, is that something that you're concerned with, or
you know,
you want to have something written on your tombstone? You know, what's going on here?
I never thought about that. That's a good thing. But I tell you what, I just recently thought about legacy because at the same time I was down directing Carolyn Rattray, OVO came to LA.
Oh.
And so I got to go to the opening of OVO and see a legacy on that stage that who knows how long those shows will last. Like the life, I think, is like 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I got to see what I created and what I developed and the funny that I made that's still funny on someone else's body and with a different trio of people still ring through. And that made me so proud.
So there's still a template that you may have helped forge that they still use then.
I mean, the story is mine, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The story of slapstick and the things that they do, even some of the stuff they adapted for COVID because they didn't go into the audience, but still, it's still there. Like some of the exact things that we did are still there.
So some of the gestures are still in the
gestures. Ladybug is like people think they're seeing me. Well, I mean, my face is everywhere, but I've gotten messages like, "Oh, I just saw you in LA. That was amazing." In LA, and I'm like,
"What did you?
Wow.
How did you describe your body type a few minutes ago? You said
generously proportioned.
Is the person playing the Ladybug a generously proportioned person?
And will always be.
Yeah, and even more so because you're kind of wearing like an inner tube, right?
Yeah. So they modeled this little belly off of my belly. It just exaggerated the belly.
Yeah. Well, we have one last question for you, Michelle. What do you want to be when you grow up?
That's great. What do I want to be when I grow up? I would love to be a motivational speaker when I grow up.
Oh.
Well, you're on your way.
You certainly are.
I think clowns are already that in some ways.
I feel motivated.
I think you're right.
This has been great, Michelle. You've been a wonderful speaker, and guest, I don't want to use the word guest. That's too provocative. But I mean,
no, it's not. We can't call her a guest. She's
she's
just an awesome person. I
feel like you're a kindred spirit. I just really like talking to you.
Y'all are amazing and fun, and that was so great and just like smooth. Y'all are so professional.
Thank you, Michelle. We are so glad that you joined us on the Mime Radio Show podcast. Bravo.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Mime Radio Show with Michelle Matlock. See you next time.